Hey everyone, my name's Stewart Barnes, and I'm going to be speaking about Daniel and what I think that we can take from the story and what I think that we should learn from it today. I'm sure that most of you guys know the story of Daniel. Daniel was a Jew, and him, and along with three of his good friends, they were taken from their home when Babylon invaded Jerusalem, um, and they were forced from everything that they ever knew. The only home that they knew, they watched burn to the ground. And they were forced to eat new foods and dress differently and speak a different language and be called by different names and learn new customs and an entirely different culture that they were forced into. But still, Daniel and his friends chose to be faithful to God, and they still ended up showing the people of Babylon who God was, and they made a huge impact there. Um, Especially Daniel. He was threatened with death multiple times, and he still chose, above all of that, to be who God wanted him to be and speak the truth that he knew. The most popular thing that everyone knows is he was thrown into the lion's den, where overnight he somehow survived through God's will, and he was able to control the lions, and they didn't eat him somehow. And he was told to eat the king's diet, which consisted of lots of bloody red meat and wines and alcohols that weren't kosher. And Daniel negotiated, and he ended up allowing him and his friends to be able to eat the meals that they would have been accustomed to in Jerusalem. Daniel even did a lot of small things, like he told the truth to the king when he interpreted his dream, which that might not sound like much, but the truth was that the king was going to die and his kingdom would fall. So the fact that Daniel chose to be truthful and he chose to speak what God had told him, that really says a lot about Daniel's character and about his faith in God. He still, throughout all of this, he chose to be faithful to God, and he ended up changing Babylon for good. For the rest of history, totally changed it, and it worked out for Daniel. And in Daniel 1:17 through 20, the scripture reads, "As for these four youths, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. And at the end of the time, when the king had commanded that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king spoke with them. And among all of them, none was found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore they stood before the king. And in every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters that were in all of his kingdom. And Daniel was there until the first year of King Cyrus." See, so their faith paid off for them, and God ended up blessing them tremendously and being with them throughout the whole journey. Even though they were tempted pretty good. And especially now, I think that this is an all-important lesson that we should be paying attention to. As we're starting to come out of quarantine and we're returning to our regular lives and we're going back to our jobs, and soon I'm going to be returning to school, can we say the same thing that Daniel can? That as we go into our schools and our colleges and our workplaces and even our homes, can we say that we chose to remain faithful to God and we spoke his truth even when it was hard for us? That even if we were to be tempted against a den of lions or a burning furnace, two of the most painful deaths imaginable, would we still choose to be faithful to God? That's a tough teaching. I think my answer would probably be no. And I'm not proud to admit that, but I don't think that's an uncommon thing. I think that sometimes it can be very, very easy for us to get into a lukewarm spot where we can easily say no to that question, that we wouldn't be willing to stick to our faith in those situations, which I think is understandable. But every day we all go into our own den of lions, and I think that every day is a new opportunity for us to be voices for God. Because God doesn't speak in prophets anymore. He speaks through us. And I think that just as Daniel, through his faith, helped King Nebuchadnezzar become a follower of God for a short time. But nonetheless, I think that if we have that same bold faith, we can too. So I just wanted to challenge and encourage all of us that as we're going back to our regular lives, that we can take this time that we had in quarantine to learn and to grow and to spend time with God. I pray that we can take this time, that we can really utilize it, that as we're going back into our regular routine of church and school and the workplace and back to home, I hope and pray for each of us that we can hold fast to our faith, that we can be proud of it and be bold, just as the early church was in Acts, that they stuck to their faith even when they were threatened with prison, just how Daniel was with the lion's den. And while we might not be thrown in prison for our faith, I think that there are still consequences for it that we have to face every day. But I think at the end of the day, we should all draw peace from the fact that those consequences are worth it, that the reward that we will get at the end, if we are faithful, will be worth any earthly consequences that we could face. So thank you for listening. I just wanted to encourage and challenge all of us. Hope you have a great day. Thank you.